Welcome to Maverick Mind, the podcast. If you are a creative soul, really ready to unlock your potential and design your path to freedom on your terms, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Ellie, designer, entrepreneur, yogi, and coach, and consider this your home to dive into the mindset, energy, and strategy to fast track your way to success. I'll also introduce you to some of the most creative, visionary, and maverick minds I know to share their insight, to feed your curiosity, and to inspire your next creation. I'm so happy you're here, so let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to a brand new episode of Maverick Mind. I'm so happy to be back here with you all as always. Whether you're somebody that listens to many of these shows or if you're brand new to me, a massive warm welcome to you either way. This week we're talking all things clothes as well as juggling many hats in our creative life. Most of you may know, you may not know that I have a fashion design background, so I have a big passion for fashion. However, not in the way that most people think fashion passion would be. Most people think that if you're passionate about fashion, you're actually passionate about shopping. And that's not me. For me, clothing is much deeper than that, and we go into that in today's episode. So I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest. Today I am joined by Emma Lightbown. Emma is a wearer of a many hats, some of which are she is a stylist of fashion and of set design, set styling. She's also a former model, so she's had experience both in front and behind the camera. She's now back in front of the camera and working as a TV presenter, podcast host. Her podcast is called Off the Hanger, and it's such a great concept. We dive into that in today's interview too. And I guess above all else, she's a mum. So we talk about a lot of different things here. We talk about the power of clothing in shifting your conviction and kind of selling yourself in an energetic way as a creative or someone who's kind of forging their own path. We talk about juggling everything, all of the hats that she has with Parenthood, which I think is an amazing skill, whether you're a parent or not, to kind of be able to get the things that you want to do done and still have time for your family. I think is just an incredible skill. So we go into how the hell she does that for anyone wondering. We talk about her life as a model and again as a stylist and her kind of work ethic throughout all of that, which I think is really inspiring to listen to. So as always, this conversation goes in many avenues, but I think you'll get so much out of this conversation. I found it really inspiring talking to Emma, and I think you'll find it really inspiring listening to her. So as always, if you love this conversation, do share it wherever you want to share it, whether that's with a friend, family member, fellow creator, or on social media. Of course, if you share on social media, do tag me at Maverick Mind Co. I would love to hear your feedback. Slide into my DMs, tell me that your favorite takeaway from this episode or something that you found interesting. I've always loved to hear it. With that, let's dive in. This is Emma Lightbown. Okay, Emma, big warm welcome to Maverick Mind. I'm so excited to have you here and to hear your story and everything, all the twists and turns and many ups and downs I'm sure you've had. First, I'd really love to know, I think like the question that came to my mind first was, what drew you to fashion styling specifically?
Thank you for having me, first of all. It's really very lovely to be here. So my career has always been driven by the creative, the love of making things, but it's never been that kind of determined as to what I would do. I loved creating stuff at school. I was forever the kid drawing and painting and coming up with things and wanting to make stuff, but I didn't know how to kind of channel that. Like when I went to see the careers advisor at school, you fill in this like weird aptitude test of all these strange questions. And then when I went to see them, they were like, "You thought about being a nurse?" And I was like, no, I can't imagine anything worse. I'm not sympathetic. I don't know why this would be a terrible idea. Because they just weren't pushing people towards creative careers. It wasn't, a thing. And so I actually fell into styling from working within the fashion industry. I started my career as a model, and I just loved being on set, and I just loved I've always really loved fashion. I've always loved dressing up and being a bit over the top and a little bit extra, and using your clothes for more than just, the practicalities of not running around naked. And when I decided to stop modeling, I kind of started moving more and more towards styling, because I'd had so many years of being on set. I'd just seen so many stylists at work. I knew I had a good eye, and I knew it was something that I could do. And I just love it. I love the whole thing of finding the perfect piece, creating something amazing, and the things that you can portray and express purely by what somebody is wearing.
I love that. As many of the listeners will know, I come from a fashion design background, so you're totally speaking my language, and that's really something that drew me to fashion. I remember when I was younger, it was I think that when I was younger, it was all the girls wanted to be in fashion in some way, like magazines or styling or design. For me, it was all about the artistry behind creating a garment, and also the feeling different garments bring you. Like you can put, like everyone talks about like wearing a new pair of shoes is like a new personality, and like a whole giving someone a really well thought out outfit can really make them hold their posture in a totally different way, and kind of make them walk through life in such a different way. And I think that's an interesting thing too, coming from the modeling world, because as a model, you kind of have to portray those characters in a way. So to then like pass on that torch to other people through styling as well is an interesting transition. I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
I think a lot of it as well, because I came from the modeling world, it gave me a real sense of perspective of what it was like to be the person in front of camera. And so I am so particular about how models are treated, how, they're made to feel comfortable. Like being cold is like your permanent state of being as a model. You're just forever cold. You're in cold situations wearing the least clothes, and everybody else is moaning about how cold they are. So I'm the stylist that is gaffer taping hot water bottles to people's bodies underneath their clothing, and making sure that I've always got pocket warmers for them, or a big coat to kind of wrap them up and give them a hug with, because I just think it's so important that they're treated like people. They're part of the team. And so often everybody else is so caught up in doing their job and their bit that they forget that somebody is literally stood there in a skimpy little gown in the freezing cold, in the depths of winter, outdoors, whilst you're faffing with the lights, or the camera's not tethered, or the makeup artist just wants to check the makeup one more time, or whatever it is. And so I think I come from a real place of empathy of how models are treated, and it was just a very, very easy transition for me going from modeling to styling, because as I say, I'd been on set all my life. I'd been on set since I was 17. I'd seen hundreds of stylists at work, and you have the best view of watching other people when you're stood in front of the camera, because they're all looking at you, but you're looking back at them. So you get to watch everything that's happening. And I'd learned from so many people. My only thing was that when I first started styling, I was very lucky in that I was able to use my married surname for styling and my maiden name for modeling, because clients didn't like the crossover. You couldn't possibly do both. You couldn't possibly
Oh, wow.
be a model and a stylist. They want you to be in a box. You're one thing or you're the other thing. And particularly when it's the model, I think quite often there can be a lot of prejudice against the models, that they are, you're just a pretty face, just stand there and do your job, and don't think that you're anything else, just stay in your box. So it's really nice to then be able to kind of circumvent that by, I'm actually a different person. It was only ever weird if I then turned up to set and I was with somebody who I'd shot with previously as a model, and they're like, you look really familiar, aren't you a model? I'm like, no, just
No, different name, different personality.
completely different person. Don't know who you're talking about.
Well, yeah, I find that quite funny within the fashion world because models are often seen as just the coat hangers, right? That you're
Yeah.
just there to be the body, but there is no soul, personality, or brain inside that body at all. And yet, so they're often really, as you say, treated not very well. And yet they are what everyone sees from the outside. Everyone else will just see that image on the advert of the model, and they've got to be looking good. And if they're cold, they're probably not going to be. It's hard to not look cold as well. But there's so many people in the background that go into making that image. Again, that like see themselves maybe as the highest importance, but really what's selling the garment or what's selling the brand is that image of the model. It's such a weird relationship, and I think over the years, well, especially since sort of when I was a teenager and started to like dance with going into fashion, or I looked into going to modeling and things like that, where it was very much the size zero and America's Next Top Model type conversation, and um models really were treated just like nothing or as coat hangers. And I think that slowly, I'd like to believe anyway, people are starting to respect each other perhaps a little bit more. I mean, do you see that now within, like, now you've been in the industry so long?
I do think there is a change. And for me, that was a massive driving force from moving away from styling. I just got so bored with not having an opinion, with standing there filled with creativity, like bursting with ideas of how we could make this the best shoot, the most incredible shot. What if I did this? What if I tried that? We could do this. And nobody wanted to hear it because they just weren't interested. And so that was my main driving force in swapping sides, as it were, because I just wanted to be able to impact what was happening and implement change. And so I think there are more people like that now, but I do think you still get a lot of people who are very much like, no, just do your job, don't do anybody else's job. We don't want any of your input. We just want you to, and it is the same from a styling point of view. As much as I do get to implement change now, I also do work as an art director, and there's definite days where I'm booked as the stylist, but there isn't an art director on set, and I will make a suggestion to the photographer. And there's definite ways that I've learned how to do it so that it's generally more like accepted. Some photographers really don't like it if you bring ideas. They want everything their way, and this is how it's going to be, and this is what we're doing. And so I've learned that instead of saying, I think we should do this, I lead with, what about if we tried this? Because then if they hate the idea, it's an easy get out for them to say, actually, no, I don't think that'll work. But a lot of the times they go, oh, yeah, we could try that. We could try that. And then they do it and it's great. And then they take the glory for it. And I'm fine with that because I know that it was my idea and that it looked great. And that's all I'm after at the end of the day is I just want the best possible outcome. I want the best possible shot. I want the thing that we make at the end of the day that we're all super proud of.
Yeah, I think that, well, I think a lot of creatives these days anyway, especially if you're somebody that's really wanting to put your visions out into the world in some way, we struggle with maybe either other people putting us in a box or putting a label on us and like only being comfortable with us sharing a certain kind of medium, a certain kind of work, a certain kind of message, or we do that to ourselves because we think that it will make us maybe a bit more palatable to other people. But there are a lot of creatives, I think, that are more multi-passionate than that. And I think that you are a real testament to doing a lot of things really well and kind of, but not keeping yourself in a box. So I'd really love to know, maybe, was there resistance to kind of doing loads of different things? I mean, styling, art direction, and now your podcast as well. Or did it all just feel very, very natural to you?
I've always kind of hated the multi-hyphen thing. So there was always that idea with me that I like to keep things quite separate, even though I'm doing lots of things, because I really disliked this idea of you're a model, you're an actor, you're a presenter, you're a stylist, you're a makeup artist, like this huge list of things. And I think there's loads of people out there who are all of those things, and that's great. But I always was a bit like, oh, does that just make me look like I'm rubbish at everything? I'm having a little go at everything because I'm not particularly great at any of them. And then I really had to work on that to kind of get over it and go, no, I'm a good stylist. I'm a great stylist. I will blow my own trumpet. I'm a great stylist. I've had a very long career. I've worked on some incredible projects. I'm also a good art director. I'm also a great presenter. I'm a good podcaster. There are all of these things that I do that I should just be able to stand up and go, actually, I am good at all of these things. Because if I don't stand up and say, I'm good at these things, why on earth would anybody book me? Why would
Absolutely.
anybody look at me and go, well, oh, look, there's a mediocre stylist. Let's work with her. She's got a few confidence issues. I'm sure she'll be great on a, £100,000 shoot or whatever it is that we're doing. And so you have to have, that ability to back yourself. I'm always learning, I'm always improving, and I'm always striving to get better at every single thing that I do. But that doesn't mean that I'm not good where I am now. So I think you've got to have that ability to back yourself and say, yes, I am actually good. And yes, it is okay that I am, a multi-hyphen, even though it gives me a bit the ick when I say it. But also I tend to vary what I tell people I do depending on who I'm talking to. And I learned that very quickly from modeling, that when I worked as a model, I would often get asked, oh, what do you do for a living? Just if you meet somebody in conversation or whatever. And generally there were two reactions that I always felt I got when I modeled. And it was either, oh, really, you? And I'd be like, oh yeah, cool, thanks. Or they'd go, wow, like I'd love to be a model. How do I be a model? And it was always quite dismissive of me. And I was just like, I just maybe won't tell people that's what I do. So I always just used to lead with, oh, I work in the fashion industry, or I work in advertising. Just make it vague. And then people will gloss over, and then you ask them about themselves and they'll tell you, they're more interested in telling you about themselves. So I think now I'm still very similar in that when people ask me what do, I tailor it depending on the situation that I'm in. Sometimes I'll say to people I'm a fashion stylist. Sometimes I will say, I am a TV presenter, which is something that I do. Sometimes I go with, oh yeah, I have a podcast, whatever it is, just because I think if I tell everybody all of my list, then it gives me the ick. These are all the multiple things that I do.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that because I do a million things as well, and I really I find that I tailor what I say to different people as well, kind of what I feel like they'd understand or who they are or what they might resonate with the most. But I think the way that you described that is actually really powerful. That it's less of a list of all the things you can do, and more of a like, how do I describe this? It's not like little mini brands, but it kind of is like little packages in a way, I suppose, of
Yeah.
like, this is a brand of me as a stylist, this is a brand of me as a presenter, or this is a podcast that I do, and they're kind of like little corners of a business that you have rather than a list of skills, rather than giving your CV to somebody. I think that's maybe something we should all take on board sometimes, because I think a lot of creatives, we have a million billion things that we're passionate about because we're naturally curious people.
And I
um
sorry, I was going to say, I think it's about the skill stack. It's about that stack of skills that you have. And as creatives, a lot of our skills are so transferable across the multitude of things that we do. So generally, if somebody asked me, what do you do? My answer should just be, I'm a creative. Like, but
yeah.
nobody, the majority of people, if you said that to them, they'd be like, I don't understand. I don't know what that is, but okay, cool. But it's because that creative aspect is transferable against so many things that I do and that, other people do, that I think actually that would be my ultimate kind of job title. It's just nobody would understand what it was.
Yeah, I think so many people listening will totally resonate with that. I definitely do, because I think, as you say, like creative energy or creativity is infinite, and it can kind of flow into anything. Like if you're an ideas person, you're an ideas person. You just make up ideas and have inspiration depending on where you are in your life or physically where you are. So yeah, I think a lot of people will definitely resonate with that. But I think as somebody that does many different, has many corners of what you do, I think I'd really love to know also, because I know that you're a parent, how you balance doing all of those things and also being a parent.
I was actually thinking about this earlier today, because I was thinking about the fact that just because you become a parent, it doesn't mean that your dreams die. You don't give them up the moment that you become a parent. It isn't like, right, well, signed up now. Now I'm a parent. Off you go, dreams. See you later. They're still there and they're still within you. And I think as creative people, we're always striving for these things and these like dreams and these goals and the things that we want to achieve. And so it's just about creating that balance. I think I've never had a 9 to 5. So I've never understood that 9 to 5 life. But then neither has my son. He's never seen me with a 9 to 5 life. So he wouldn't know how that would feel. So we're just making it work with the life that we have, because it's all very subjective. You know, there's friends of mine who are like 9 to 5 life people, and they make it work. They have very specific childcare and they have very specific routines. And we're just all a bit more free flowing and frantic than that. We, you know, like, are you here? It's a generally, you know, it's a general conversation between me and my husband of, where are you tomorrow? Are you here? Am I here? Who's here? Who's like doing the parenting and the childcare, and who's making dinner, and what's happening? And because we're both freelancers and we're both creatives, we just make it work. But then we have the flip side. We have the benefits of that. It's sports day tomorrow. I've not got to go ask anybody to have the afternoon off. I just go, well, sports day tomorrow. I'm not working. Like, I want to be there. You know, my son's decided he wants to go to the cinema straight after school on a Wednesday afternoon, and I can just go, yeah, fine, cool, I'll take you, let's go. It's always really, you know, there's pros and cons of everything. And I think there's always going to be mum guilt, no matter what you are, what your schedule's like, what your career path is like. It's always going to be there. It's just something that I think is within us all. So there are times when I'm away filming or I'm away on a big shoot or whatever, and I think, oh no, I am going to miss that thing. Or I know that he's missing me and I'm missing him. But I think the joys of technology, good old FaceTime, makes a huge difference, because we can still chat and we still have conversations, generally via text in the medium of GIFs, which is the only thing that I do with my 10-year-old.
The best kind of message.
Nobody else do I have GIF conversations with, but with my 10-year-old, this is what we do. And I think we're just able to kind of keep communicating, and he's very good at communicating. He's very open, he's very honest. He will say, like, you've been away a lot and I miss you, and can we do something this weekend, and can we just hang out, or, you know, what do you want to do? And that's really good that we're able to have those kind of conversations. And he knows that there will be periods of time when I'm super busy and I'm not here, and then there's other periods of time where he literally can't get rid of me, and he's like, Mum, can you please go to work? You've been here a lot and I'm good now. Can you go to work? I'd quite like to play Roblox.
All about that balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would love to know also, like, because I always think that parenthood in general leaves you, or it feels as though it leaves you with less time, but maybe you just have to be a bit more efficient about the time that you do have if you want to, you know, pursue your dreams still and put yourself out there, do social media, create podcasts and things like that. Have you found that you just do everything faster, or are you maybe more time efficient? I'd love to know that.
I honestly don't know what I used to do with my time pre being a parent. Like, I just must wasted so much time just kind of flitting about. I'm just going to sit there, I'm going to read a book for a few hours, and then I'm going to wander off and look at my phone for a little bit. I don't know what I did with all of the time that I had, because now time is very precious, and I'm very conscious of getting things done and being efficient, and it is a real driving force. You really do notice how much less time you have, and so it's definitely used in a much more efficient way. And I know that's something that both myself and my husband have recognized about time. The school day is a blink and you'll miss it thing. Like, I take him to school and then I've done a few emails and then I have to go pick him up again. I'm like, oh God, just back. So when I am like very aware of trying to do stuff for my podcast, I might have big shoots on, I might be prepping for some live TV, whatever it is, I'm really good at focusing those tasks within that time and being super time efficient, because you just have to. Time just slips away from you. And also, I think it really depends on the type of person you are. I am not a night owl by any stretch. I am a morning person. Come 7 o'clock in the evening, I am useless. There's no point me trying to do any work after that time, because it'll be rubbish and I'll just have to do it again the following day. So I'm really conscious that if I need to get stuff done, I start early and I get it done, and it's a before doing the school run and everything else thing. I'm not one of these people that's able to go, oh, well, it's fine when they go to bed, I'll just do loads of work in the evening. My brain doesn't work like that at all. So I think it's knowing that you have to work within your own limitations as well as the limitations of the time that you've got.
Great advice. And the reason I asked that, by the way, listeners, I know some people listening will be parents and some won't be parents, but over my time, I have kind of looked to parents who are still doing the hard things as kind of like the oracle for how to do less better. Or like how to just like really be very intentional about everything that you do. And if you're still building a presence, or you're still building a business, or you're still building yourself as a creative or like a leader within your creative industry, how are you doing that in a very short amount of time? Because then even if you're not a parent, you can learn so much about how to use your time better. And I think with creativity, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We need a lot of freedom, or a lot of time freedom to create sometimes, but sometimes having those limitations can actually make you more creative, I think. Sometimes saying like, in this hour I need to do X, what am I going to do with it, instead of maybe prior to having a baby or prior to having kids, or when you have more time in your life in general, you can just flit around and waste a lot of the time. And maybe how much of that time are you really putting towards ideas, and how much are you scrolling in the scroll hole?
And it's really about focus and productivity. So I'm very aware that when I sit down to do a task, I am doing that task and that task only, because every time you break off that task to look at something else or get caught up in something else, or an email or a phone call or whatever it is, you lose something ridiculous like 40% of your productivity. And so then dividing that over multiple tasks that you're doing all at the same time, it takes you so long to be able to get back your focus for that one task. So I will very much sit down and go, right, this morning I am sitting down for an hour and I am going to do podcast marketing. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to do my social clips, I'm going to do, some social posts, I'm going to schedule everything, I'm going to get this done within this hour. And then in an hour's time, I'll have a quick scroll on TikTok, or, check my Instagram DMs or whatever it is. And it is really about kind of dividing up that time in a useful way to maximize productivity, because otherwise, the more you try and multitask on things, the less productive you are.
Yeah, and I guess also it's like being very clear on what your vision of what you're actually creating is, because then you can be a bit more intentional about what you're doing in a micro steps to get there. Like if you're really clear on where you're going, you can kind of start to see, today I can do this one thing that might move the needle toward that vision that I have. As well. So yeah, that's really great advice. And again, I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with, the productivity. I definitely do anyway. But I think again, when you have that crunch, I suppose, of I actually need to do something and I need to do it now, what am I going to do to get me that one step forward and still be at school for 3 p.m. or whatever time it is that you pick them up.
Exactly. It's definitely about that. And also, I think you end up snatching little moments during the day in unexpected places. Like when I do the school run, if I get there and I've got 15 minutes, I'll sit in the car and I'll do emails, or I'll check whatever it is that I need to on my phone. And I think it is so much easier nowadays because of our phones, because we have all that information that we're able to access. And I'm very much that you can have a massive goal and it can feel really unattainable and really difficult to get there. But you're so right in that it's about breaking down those little steps. And if you can take one tiny little step every single day, you will get there. Your goal is not like unachievable, and it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You're not going to get there straight away. You've got to do all these tiny little steps, just keep putting one foot in front of the other to get there. And so sometimes it is a case of I've managed to do nothing all day in terms of like my podcast or whatever. It might be that I'm prepping for a big shoot, but if I then go to pick up my son from school and I can just sit there and do one little thing on my phone, be that an email to a guest or, you know, a little bit of promotion or whatever it is, then I do feel quite kind of satisfied that I'm still going forwards, I'm still progressing.
Yeah, it's still a little win, I think. And a lot of us get stuck in this web of if I'm not doing the big thing, then I'm not, then like anything small is like not enough or not good enough. But I really think on any journey of doing the hard things, you kind of have to cheerlead that small thing. Like, even if it is just sending an email, if that's all you had time for today, like, yay, celebrate that. And it is a really small step towards where you want to go. Because had you not taken that step, you would have just stayed in the same place.
Exactly. And I think it's the little things that matter. It's those little things that you do time and time and time again that actually lead to those big moments and those big rewards and the big achievements. And I just think one of my big things is that you don't fail, you quit. You never fail at trying to achieve your goal. It's that people quit, and that's why they don't get to their goal, because they decided to stop bothering, they decided to stop trying. Even if you're doing a tiny little thing every single day, you're still on the path to achieving what it is that you want to achieve. Just keep going, even if it's a tiny thing. But if you quit altogether, well, then you're definitely not achieving it, are you? So I think, yeah, you never fail, people quit. And I think that's a big thing that you've got to kind of get into your brain, that actually, as long as I don't quit, I'm not failing.
Totally, I really agree with that. And I think that, or even if you're pursuing like some kind of project and outwardly maybe it does fail, maybe that you're pursuing a business idea and it's actually not received as well as you think it is, closing that business is not a failure. It is that whatever that is on your journey will lead you towards something else that will eventually be more aligned with who you are, probably, and more successful in the long run, because you learn so much along the way, especially doing something like running a business. You learn, it's like a massive portal for infinite learning. um but yeah, I think that if you then just quit at that first hurdle, then yeah, it is kind of a failure, I suppose, in a way. But if you just take that setback and use it as a springboard to something else, or something intuitively might lead you to some other path on your creative journey that again is more exciting for you, it's absolutely not a failure.
Exactly. I don't think there's any failures. I think you just learn. You either, there's a saying about you don't fail, you either win or you learn. And I think that's a huge thing. Throughout my career, I've had loads and loads of failures, and you just have to get really comfortable with them. The quicker you can become comfortable with failure, the more successful I feel that you'll be, because the most successful people have failed countless times, and they've learned from each of those mistakes or those failures, and they've got up and gone, right, actually that didn't work, but if I try it like this, maybe this will work, or if I do that, maybe that will work. And I think it's really accepting that you've got to be comfortable with failure. And I think so much of that grounding for me came from modeling. I would go to, hundreds of castings, like maybe, sometimes in busy periods it could be up to like 10 castings a day. I'd be really lucky if I was getting one of those. Like, there were so many people, and you just learn to kind of get used to that discomfort of rejection and failure. You go, okay, fine, well, that's all right, it brings me closer to the next yes. That's all I've got to think of. I'll go to all of these castings, and out of 25 castings I might get one of them, and that'll be great, and I'll be really pleased with that. But the other 24, I've just got to go, well, it's fine, it's okay.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, as you were speaking earlier, you must have got a lot of that mentality from modeling, or if anyone listening is an acting or an actor or a dancer can really resonate with that. I think some people get stuck in they take on all those rejections personally, quite easily, and then it can kind of go the other way. It can really, really kill your confidence when, especially for something like that, when you're going for castings and it kind of feels like the power's always in someone else's hands. But I think if you have the mentality of I'm just going to keep going forward, or I'm going to learn something from this casting that will take me into the next one, and I'm just going to extract some kind of positivity from this, and at some point someone's going to say yes. It really, again, gives you a bit more of an empowered attitude toward that process, which again will then lead you, if you then go into something else like you have, it's a really, really important personality trait, I suppose, and a lesson to carry into everything. And I think so many creatives really struggle with the idea of rejection. Whether they're trying to sell their artwork, they're trying to put their music out there, and they just really focus on everybody that might hate it rather than all of the people that will really love what they're doing. And you put yourself out there in so many ways, in different ways, as we've said, but I'd love to kind of discuss maybe finding your tribe of followers, or whatever you want to call them, fans, in different lights, and kind of maybe using your platforms to build maybe more of a community or a following rather than focusing on everybody that might not like what you're doing.
I think the biggest thing for me was coming to the realization that what we do is super subjective. So not everybody will like what I do. That's absolutely fine. I don't expect them to, and I don't think I want them to either, because I think if everybody likes the things that you're doing, you end up being vanilla, and everybody likes vanilla, and that's why the phrase is about being vanilla, because everybody likes vanilla. It's just vanilla, and I don't want to be a vanilla. I want to be spicy, or like chocolate, or something that's a bit more divisive. I want people to have more of an opinion about what it is that I do, and I've never really cared about whether people like me or not. Like, if you don't like me, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to be your cup of tea. And I think that comes from a place of, I don't like everybody, so why would everybody like me? There's going to be people I encounter in life where I'm like, well, I don't like you. You're not my vibe. You don't have it. You're not the energy that I like. And so if I'm like that, why would that not be the same for me? I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea that everybody's going to like us, and we really shouldn't. And especially not when it comes to something creative, because it is, as I say, very, very subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. And I think that's a really big thing to kind of understand, is that when you are creative and you are making something, there is no right or wrong answer. It is not maths. And I'm glad for it, because I am terrible at it. We're not doing maths, we're doing creative things. So there isn't a right or wrong answer. So you might hate what I have made, but if I love what I have made, that's all that matters, because I think I'm right, and that's okay. And so I think very much so, I don't try and cultivate any great kind of audience anywhere that I make things. Obviously, I do like fashion content for Instagram, and I do little reels and TikToks and all of that kind of stuff. And then I have my podcast, and none of that is driven by the idea of, I want millions of people to like this. It's more driven by the fact of, if 5 people find this really useful and really enjoy this, and this is great for them, then that's what I care about. And I had a lovely, lovely email from a podcast that I'd put up recently. And it was, I had the most fabulous drag queen come on the podcast, and we chatted all about gender fluidity in fashion, and how clothes are clothes, and there's no right or wrong answer, and it shouldn't be girl clothes and boy clothes. They're just clothes. You wear whatever you're drawn to. And I had a lovely, beautiful message from someone saying that they listened to the podcast and it made them so happy that they cried, because representation was so important, and they were so grateful that we were having this conversation, and that they felt seen and that they felt included. And I was like, perfect. My job is done here. Thank you very much. I'm going for a cup of tea. Perfect. That's all I need, is that just to make an impact to a few people, a handful of people that listen to the podcast, or that watch my YouTube content, or my TikToks, or whatever silly thing it is that I'm making, and that they resonate with it and that they enjoy it. that's job done for me. That's why I create things. I don't create things for the masses because I'm not trying to be vanilla. I'm not trying to be liked by everybody.
Yeah, and I guess also it's when you're sharing whatever is authentic to you, somebody else will, you kind of have to trust, I think, that somebody else somewhere will see themselves in what you're creating, and that it's through that little bit of connection of them seeing, them feeling seen by you, even if you didn't intend to, that again is of great service to other people. And it kind of feels like it's not, but it is. And it's really, that's how we connect, I think. And that's again how you perhaps find people who can become followers of yours or interested in what you're doing. It doesn't have to come from this space of force of trying to find them, but rather just sharing what you really care about, and people will come eventually. There's like that saying of like, if you dance in the field alone, eventually someone will come and dance with you, and then before you know it, you've got a festival happening around you.
Love that. And I think it's a much more authentic way of creating. If you're trying to be liked by everybody, you're not being authentic to yourself. You're not authentically putting out there who you are, because none of us are going to be liked by everybody. So don't try to be liked by everybody. Just try and be your authentic self. Post things that, you know, set you alight and that make you feel passionate, because there are other people out there who feel the same. They have that connection. And eventually, you know, granted, the algorithms are not the best in terms of helping these people find us, but, you know, that's an entirely different conversation. But they are out there, those people who really connect and resonate with the things that you are making and creating. They will find you eventually. It's just about being out there posting authentically as you are.
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to be patient in a way. We all want to like get to where we want to get to yesterday. You know, we want the hit song, or the big career, or the $1 million business like within 5 minutes. And I think that, like, as we were saying earlier, with like the small tasks that you do to get towards, to get you where you want to get to, at the same time it's just sort of like day by day people will find you. And then, or if you're attracting an audience anyway, which most of us are, I suppose, and then day by day you're again closer to that vision. You kind of again have to trust that people will find you, and trust that you are sharing something that you really want to share, and sharing something that's authentic to you is 10 times better and 10 times more fulfilling than sharing just what you think people want to see in order to build an audience or in order to be liked.
And I think it's about really enjoying the journey. We're all on a kind of, it's really cliche, but we are all on this sort of journey and this path, whether that is to, you know, having a super successful business or a really incredible career or whatever it is. But if you only feel that you're going to be happy when you make it, when you achieve the thing, you're missing out on so much. And I think it's about being able to enjoy every step of the journey. Yes, it's going to be graft and it's going to be hard, but if you're not enjoying that part of it, then you should be looking for something else to do, because I think your happiness isn't going to be fulfilled when you achieve the goal. There's so many, you know, stories of people out there who had overnight success or who won the lottery, and it doesn't play out the way that they want it to play out because they weren't happy in the first place. You've got to find those little pockets of happiness in the things that you're doing and in the little steps that you're doing to reach your big goal. Otherwise, when you get to your big goal, it's not going to bring you any joy.
Totally. That's something that I come back to a lot, and something that I share a lot. I think that we have this mentality of like, when we get to the top of the mountain, we'll somehow be a different person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when I get to $1 million business or something, I'll be this kind of person and therefore I'll be happy. When it's actually like, when you get there, I've met enough people that are super successful in their field to realize when you get there, if you aren't happy every step along the way, or you aren't authentic, or don't really do things that light you up every single step of that way, you won't, all your problems will still be there when you get to the top of that mountain. You still, and also when you get to the top of the mountain, you still have to like do the boring things in life that maybe you don't want to do sometimes. It's not like all the problems will be solved when you get there. It's, as you say, it is a little bit cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. That we have to enjoy the journey to where we're getting to and really do the things that light us up, whatever that looks like, wherever you are now, and drop that maybe attachment to the outcome of that goal.
Yeah, I completely agree. It shouldn't be about the goal, it should be about the journey. And I think as creatives, as long as you're creative all along the way, like at every step you're creating something, then you will generally enjoy it. If you're only going to be creative when you reach that pinnacle point, then I think that's too far away. You need to find ways to kind of integrate that into every single day. During lockdown was a big thing for me. It was obviously the first time that I kind of wasn't working and was really like just kind of stuck at home, and that's not who I am. I'm always traveling about, I'm always doing stuff. And so my poor husband, he's a photographer, bless him, and I just made him shoot with me all the time. We just did loads of shoots because I had to be making something. I had to be shooting, even if it wasn't for a client, even if it wasn't going to be a big ad campaign, even if it was just stuff that we were shooting in our garage that was little still life, whatever it was, we were doing it because I was like, I have to. My brain will go crazy if I am not creating stuff.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. And I think it's something that sometimes we forget, and something that I've witnessed through coaching so many creatives through mindset and other things, that when you're not creating, it's like the surefire way to be really, really anxious. It's there's
Yeah.
something about that pent up creative energy not going anywhere that really does bring a lot of anxiety into a creative person. And I think sometimes we, especially for someone pursuing a creative career or business, you kind of think that everything you create has to be in alignment with that. Everything has to be sold, or everything has to be going toward, as we say, the goal. Or sometimes to get that pent up anxiety out, you kind of just have to create for the sake of having fun, or create for the sake of creating, or just for the sake of, as you say, sanity.
Yeah, I think that's it. Whether, it's doing something creative that's in a completely different field. I'm always up for a little bit of arts and crafts with my son, because he'll be like, do you want to come and do this YouTube tutorial where we follow this thing and we make something out of cardboard boxes and then it's massive and we use the glue gun? And I'm like, yes, always, always. It's not related to my job. Yes, sometimes I am doing crafty things for shoots or whatever, but it's very rare that I'm making kind of like castles out of cardboard boxes with a glue gun for work. But it's a really nice creative outlet to just have, to just make something. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's okay if it looks a real disaster. And I think, again, that's that permission to fail. Like, it's okay if we make something and it's rubbish, because we made it and we had fun while we were making it, and that's all right. I love baking for that very same reason. Yes, sometimes I bake things and I'm like, well, that was a disaster. But I enjoyed the process and I'm still going to eat it afterwards.
Well, yeah, I've done that sometimes, and it's actually just inedible. It was fun to make, but then it's just like, okay, well, I can't even eat it. But still, I had a good time. So, and it's a good story sometimes. It's a funny story to tell. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit, and we touched on it a minute ago about your podcast, because I think your podcast is a really interesting and unique concept. So, do you want to let everyone know what the podcast is all about?
Yeah, sure. So my podcast is called Off the Hanger, and I interview guests about the favorite pieces in their wardrobe and the stories behind them. And it's kind of a bit of a trip down memory lane. We talk about all the various pieces in their wardrobe, from the oldest to the newest to the most sentimental. And it really gives the guests the opportunity to express more than just clothes being the things that we wear. It's about who we are. It's about how we want to portray ourselves. I have regularly said I'm a kind of weird blend of introvert and extrovert. So I cannot physically, I will die if I have to go and approach somebody at a networking event. It would kill me. I can't. I just can't. I don't know why. My legs won't move. My brain won't engage my mouth. I cannot do it. There's something inside me that just fails. However, I have learned a very clever trick in that I will overdress to everything because clothes are my armor, and that's absolutely fine. And if I'm wearing something that's a bit out there or a little bit different, or I just stand out a bit from the crowd, I don't need to approach anybody because people will always come to me and say, "Oh my God, I love your outfit," or "Wow, that's a really bright color." At which point, everything suddenly kicks into gear and I'm able to be a normal human again, and I can just talk to them because they came to me. But I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for my clothes. I can't put a sign around my neck saying, "I'm an introvert, come and start a conversation," because I can't. So my clothes do that for me. They work as an armor, as a talking point, as an opener, and it's a fail-safe. I do it time and time and time again. And there's so many little things like that that our clothes have this huge impact on us. I think it's really fascinating learning that from the guests. And my guests are so varied. When I started the podcast, there were already a couple out there that were doing a similar thing, but it was all very much celebrity driven. And I was like, well, I think that's a bit boring and a bit obvious. Not to be mean about celebrities, I'm sure there are loads out there with great wardrobe stories. But actually, I really like the idea of having guests from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, whether that's different economic backgrounds, whether that's cultural backgrounds. I've had a fabulous yoga teacher who lived in a van driving across America with the world's tiniest wardrobe, through to people who are TV presenters and have got stylists and are wearing fabulous things on the red carpet. I've had a drag queen, I've had a drag king. I had a fabulous lingerie designer recently who was transgender, and actually the lingerie brand that she has saves people's lives. Like, it's a tucking lingerie brand, and she was saying it's not about an aesthetic thing, it's a life saving thing, it's for safety. That's why they do it. And it's just fascinating discussions. And I'm such a little nosy Parker. I love to know what people are wearing, and but why they're wearing it and what made them choose those things.
I love that because I'm the same, totally of the same mind. I'm really fascinated by like the stories that clothes have. Like from a design perspective, I was always obsessed with the idea of like I could design this thing, and then it goes on and lives its own life. You know, it goes to parties, it goes to weddings, it like walks down Oxford Street or wherever, or goes to some trendy bar in Shoreditch, and it has this life that I'll never know about. But it's so interesting to kind of see clothes in that way. So many of us, I think creatives are maybe better at expressing or maybe take a bit more intention about their clothes, but society sometimes we just view them as things that we can throw away, cheap things because we need to not walk around naked, or or just something to wear once and then forget about. But I think these clothes really do become part of us, and they are our armor in some way, or are an extension of who we are in some way. And I think it's so interesting to kind of, as you say, actually way more interesting to take on, to interview people from all different backgrounds, not just a celebrity, to hear maybe a more diverse range of stories, and those stories those clothes can tell.
Exactly, because all of these pieces have got stories linked to them. Everything in your wardrobe has a story linked to them, whether it's the time when you bought it, whether it's the first time you wore it, whether it's the last time you wore it. There's always these little stories that are linked to the pieces that we have. And they say so much about us. You know, people have made a decision about you and about your personality within something crazy like 3 or 4 seconds of seeing you. You've not even opened your mouth, and they've made a judgment on who you are and what you're about based purely on how you look. And so much of that is on what you wear. And so particularly for me with my job, in terms of presenting and being on TV or being on stage or whatever it is, I need to project this ultimate kind of air of confidence, and I do that through my clothes. But as I said earlier, I'm actually weirdly a little introvert, and I can't go talk to people in a networking space because I'll die.
I think a lot of us can definitely resonate with that. I've always found like proper networking organized networking events are so intimidating. But
Yeah.
if I was in like quite a more relaxed environment, I probably could go up to someone. But just because it's got that label of networking event, I immediately go into my shell and I say, I can't talk to anyone. Or, as you say, just wear something that will be a nice talking point so somebody will come up to me.
Exactly. And it's a confidence thing. I think we do it with not just our clothes, but our makeup. I've always said that for me, a red lip is my superhero cape. So when I need to feel super confident, I'll just put on a red lip. It doesn't matter the circumstance. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm going or what it is that I'm doing that I need to feel more confident on. I will just put on a red lip because I know that I feel great when I have a red lip. And actually, those little tweaks and changes that we can do to how we feel about ourselves are crucial. I always think it's really sad when you kind of see people and they're just dressed in really oversized drab clothes that are doing nothing for them, that they clearly have put no thought into, and they're trudging around and they just look miserable and sad. And I'm like, actually, if you spent 5 more minutes getting dressed every single morning, you would walk a completely different way. You would talk a different way. You would stand taller. You would feel differently about yourself. And I think fashion has such a superficial reputation. Oh, you're so vain, you're interested in fashion. And it's like, no, that's not why I'm interested in fashion. I'm interested in fashion for all the underneath reasons, not just purely that I might catch a glimpse of myself in the window and go, oh my God, I look fire. It's because I go, actually, I do look fire and I do feel confident. And so if I am going to walk into that job interview or whatever it is, I'm going to feel great about myself. And why would you not try and give yourself those extra little boosts that, are really easily achievable?
Totally agree. And just a question regarding that, in case anyone is listening and they're maybe in what's the word, like a stagnant space with what they wear. Maybe they wear the same things all the time, or maybe it's something that they've never really thought about what their style is or what kind of clothes might make them feel their most empowered or their most authentic self, as we mentioned earlier. Are there any tips like styling from a stylist point of view that can help someone find that kind of clothing voice?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is to start small, to start really, really small. And it might just be that instead of buying that big, oversized black t shirt, you might go, oh, well, I'm going to try a color for once, just any color. And it's about remembering that fashion isn't permanent. It's not cosmetic surgery. It's not a major change. You wear that thing for one day, for 1 hour, to literally pop to the shops down the road and just see how you feel. And actually, one of my favorite quotes is a Harry Winston quote of people will stare, make it worth their while. And people might look at you. People look at me all the time because I'm wearing daft things. That's absolutely fine. I don't care. If I brighten somebody's day because they've seen me wearing something that's a little bit ludicrous on the school run, then great. Then great. That's absolutely fine. I'm not bothered because I know that that thing's making me feel great. And if you've looked at it and gone, oh, that's a bit interesting, fine, that's okay. And people, a lot of the times, actually aren't interested in you or what you're wearing. They're more interested in themselves and what they're wearing or what they're doing. So whilst you might go, oh my God, I've never ever worn a dress in my life and I'm going to buy a dress and I'm going to leave the house in it and everybody's going to stare at me, guarantee they're not. They're not. They're just getting on with their life. You wearing that dress might be a huge step to you. It might be the biggest challenge, but to them, they're probably not even going to notice. If anything, your friends and family might notice, and you might get a compliment of, oh, I've never seen you in a dress before, or oh my God, you look amazing. But 9 times out of 10, people are never going to say a negative thing to you. And if they do say a negative thing to you, that's on them, not you. I once
Absolutely.
turned up to a pub. Like, we'd gone for lunch and I had these amazing, I love these trousers, like black and white check trousers on. Really cool. Loved them. Little t-shirt, trainers, red lip, thought I looked cracking. The chef came out of the kitchen in the same outfit. The same outfit. And literally everybody who I was with, it was a work, we were like working and we were pub lunch. Everybody that I was with on this shoot was like, oh my God, Emma, you're in the same outfit. And I was like, this is amazing. Come here, let's take a picture because this is brilliant. So this entire pub then ended up staring and kind of laughing at the pair of us in the same act. And I was just like, do you know what? This is fine. I'm just going to own this. I'm just
Yeah.
going to own this moment of it being a bit daft and it being funny. But my trousers are still amazing. And I don't care that he's also wearing them. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's like it doesn't really matter because you still felt good in the moment.
Exactly.
So, and he might be wearing uniform or whatever, but it actually doesn't matter, and it makes a good story. So,
Exactly. And that's it. I'm all for, a regular little fashion disaster or being overdressed. Last week I was very, very lucky and I got to go to the Bridgerton premiere,
wow.
but I don't live in central London. So I had got very dressed up to go to the Bridgerton premiere. I had on a gown. I had on this beautiful kind of little crown thing. I had to go get on the train from my local train station into central London. The people who live in my little town are not the kind of people who would be in the middle of the day wearing a gown with a tiara. Then it's just not their vibe. So everybody was just properly staring at me. I got asked 3 times, was I going to get married? I was like, no, casual, just Wednesday afternoon, going into town, wearing a full length big tulle gown. It's fine. And so I got there and my friend was equally dressed up and it was just funny. It was funny that I'd come into town on the train with all of these other people just going about their normal lives and I just looked ridiculous and I was like, I don't care.
No, and it's a talking point again. It gets people
Exactly.
talking to each other instead of looking at their phones, which most people do on the
Exactly.
train.
So many people came and spoke to us and were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, I feel really privileged. I'm going to the Bridgerton premiere. Like, I'm buzzed about this. I'm
Yeah.
not kind of shy or retiring about the fact that I'm wearing a gown in the middle of the day. When else do I ever get to wear a ridiculous gown like this? This is
Mm.
great. So yeah, loads of people stopped us and talked to us. And I think we brightened up lots of people's day in our Regency gowns on a Wednesday afternoon.
I love that, and you got to go big for a Bridgerton premiere for sure. You got
Oh,
to go all out for that.
absolutely do. I think, well, you really, genuinely, you really do, because when we got there, anybody who wasn't dressed up got split off into a different section and they weren't on the red carpet. It was
Oh
only
wow.
super dressed up who got to go down the carpet. So I was like, well, I looked ridiculous on the train now because I get to swan about on the red carpet with all of the celebrities.
Totally worth it. Totally worth it. And I think like just to kind of cycle back toward like clothes kind of maybe changing the way that you hold yourself. I find personally, I don't know if you maybe find the same, that I actually find that I create differently sometimes when I'm wearing something that I feel really myself in. It doesn't have to be that elaborate, but I feel really myself in and not like I'm just in my comfies at home. But I really find that I create from a more empowered space too.
I agree completely. There were definitely times, not to keep going back to the dreaded lockdown, but there were definitely times in lockdown, I think, when we weren't getting dressed. We were in our joggers or in our pajamas all day and no one was going to see us. So did it matter if I brushed my hair? No, probably not. But actually, if I wanted to create and if I wanted to work and feel like I was being productive and getting things done, I still got dressed, like properly dressed. And I still do that now. If I am not leaving the house for the day, I might be doing the school run, that's about it. But I'm going to be sat at my computer and I'm going to be working and doing stuff. I still get dressed in a way that I could go into the center of town for a meeting. I might not wear a suit, do you know what I mean? But I would still be wearing something that made me feel great and that made me feel like me, because I think it's very easy to go, oh, well, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to throw this old thing on and it's going to be fine. But actually, the difference in how that makes me feel to just putting on something that's a print or a bit of color, there's a huge, big disparity between the two. So I always try and properly get dressed into something that makes me feel great, because I know it's going to make me feel more creative, more productive, and I'm actually going to get more stuff done because of it.
Totally. Like aside from doing this and aside from being a fashion designer, I've also taught yoga for the last 12 years. And there's times where I was full-time teaching yoga and I was wearing yoga pants all day, every day. And I really lost a lot of my creativity, I think, or it kind of just becomes a uniform. And then when I kind of got to a space where I realized that, which probably was lockdown, to be honest, because we couldn't teach in studios so much anymore, and started to wear real clothes again. It was like I realized that I'd lost a part of myself, just because of what I was wearing. It is a really big thing, and I think sometimes we don't realize how much every aspect of our lives, what the way we dress, the way we arrange our homes, the way that we go about our day, is all an art, and it's all a kind of creative act, and always fuels those the work that we're producing.
I agree completely. And I think it's very easy to lose yourself. I think it happened to a lot of people in lockdown. I know for me personally, my biggest kind of moment of that was when I had my son. So obviously I was heavily pregnant for quite a long time and nothing fit anymore. And as best as I could with maternity wear, I was still trying to dress like me. But actually, the big impact was when I'd had my son and I didn't do well post pregnancy. I'm not great at sleep deprivation. It's quite like some form of hideous torture. And my son, bless him, was not the best at sleeping. And so I just completely lost who I was. I was in joggers and hoodies and t-shirts and sweatshirts and black and dark colors and drab colors for quite some time. And it really took a while for me to get that balance back of going, it's okay, you can be somebody's mum and still be yourself. You don't have to have a mum wardrobe. You don't have to dress like this kind of social idea of this is how a mum dresses. You know, you're all about your kids now. You definitely don't think about yourself. Heaven forbid that you've done your hair and makeup, because you're a mum. You're supposed to just be all about your children. And it took me a while to kind of get through that. And then I remember the first day that I kind of went out to work and I was like, right, cool, here we go. I put on like leather trousers. I had a really nice blouse. I'd done my hair. I'd done my makeup. I suddenly really felt like me again. I was like, oh, there I am. And I looked in the mirror and there was that whole thing, that quite shocking thing of, oh, look, there I am. Like I'd lost who I was. I'd completely kind of forgotten and I just faded away. And by putting on my kind of clothes that felt like me, I was like, oh, I'm there. I'm still there. And it's okay that I'm still there. I can be somebody's mum and I can still be me. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. 100% that you can kind of exist in both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't have to fit in any kind of box, whether it's the box of our society's idea of what a mum looks like, you know, messy bun and joggers on, going the school run, or whether it's a box of maybe the certain kind of creative that we are. You get to be yourself and fill in the blank, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's a great place to end. I thought we could talk all day. But thank you so much, Emma, for joining me today. And I'll of course leave the links to find you in the show notes, but maybe just out loud let everyone know where everyone can find you on Instagram and your podcast too.
Yes, so my podcast is Off the Hanger. You can find me on YouTube and Spotify and Apple, and on TikTok and Instagram as Off the Hanger Official. And then if you want to just see me, I'm just Emma Lightbown.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure everyone would have got so many nuggets of gold from that. And thanks again.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it. And if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.